Well, boys and girls, just when I didn't think my desk could raise any higher than 3 inches, I think it's officially hit 4 because, ladies and gentlemen, according to the Wall Street Journal, it looks like Nelson Peltz may very well end up getting the seats on the board for the Walt Disney Company that he wants. And boys and girls, I cannot tell you how excited I am to see this. Now, if this ends up turning out to be true, we'll find out next Wednesday when all the votes are officially tallied. But if this turns out to be true, obviously it's not going to be a turnaround at day one kind of situation over at the House of Mouse. No, it's going to take years, if not probably a decade or so, for any of these kind of effects to actually trickle down all the way down to the consumer. But at the end of the day, it is a very good start. It is a very good switch. But it's not the first time the Walt Disney Company has had dark ages where things aren't going very well for them. Now, obviously, it's probably the first time that they've ever been completely and totally overtaken by acolytes of the cult and forced to propagize their general agenda and all of their divisive messaging throughout the entire world, and especially forcing it down our children's throats and devastating all of our beloved characters in the process. Well, boys and girls, it looks like as of next week, the beginning of the end of that regime may very well happen. So we're going to check out this article from That Park Place, get into all of the juicy details and see exactly what is going on. But ladies and gentlemen, this is something that has me excited and at least cautiously optimistic. Let's see if we end up getting burned again or not, but we'll find out next Wednesday, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on all this. So let's get into this, and make sure you smash that like button if you haven't already. A new report from the Wall Street Journal is a game changer going into the Wednesday Disney shareholders meeting. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Nelson Peltz may have a lead in votes as final ballots are turned in from across the spectrum of Disney shareholders. Though exact numbers have not been provided, the majority of votes may still be outstanding. The idea that Peltz is currently in the lead is a shock wave across the industry. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to wait until the very last minute to vote their shares. I don't know how many of these big, especially these big institutions. I'd imagine most of them would have had their votes in a while ago, or at least as soon as all of this stuff opened, like they would have already been on the fence. But maybe a lot of them are still on the fence. Maybe they still haven't decided. We'll have to see what happens. This report alone could be enough to push all of the rest of the individual investors and the industry investors out there waiting to see if they've made their decision yet. This might actually push them over the hump to go, hey, guess what? We want to be on the winning side, so we're going to vote for Peltz. I don't know, but this is cool. This is cool. The Wall Street Journal article notes that even major institutional organizations are throwing their support to Peltz in the very late 11th hour. Neuenberg Borman supports Treon Slate, citing the company's succession woes as others back CEO Bob Iger and his strategy. Also, according to the same article, a spokesman for Disney said leaking an early vote count was a highly inappropriate attempt to sway votes. Yes, because I'm sure if it was going your way, the Walt Disney Company would have not called on one of their many acolytes out there to go out there and push their agenda and push the narrative that, of course, everybody's siding with Bob Iger. Of course, everybody has faith in Bob Iger. Except it turns out that's not true. And if you don't think the Walt Disney Company would have done that, I got a bridge to sell you. While we cannot possibly state whether or not this leak would benefit Peltz or Disney, it is difficult to suggest that the leaking early vote data is in any way appropriate. However, given that the information is now publicly available, it is undoubtedly have some impact on some voters. Will institutionalists now see a green light for voting Peltz? Will smaller individual shareholders flock to Iger with a desire to cast votes that they would have otherwise sat dormant? One thing is for sure. Most pundits likely thought that Nelson Peltz had a very small outside the chance of getting on the Disney board of directors. Absolutely. A lot of people were saying about this. I tried to be as optimistic, as hopeful as I possibly could during this entire process, but I'm no business expert in insider industry, especially inside the corporate world and all this kind of stuff. That's why I go to people like Valiant Renegade. That's why I go to people like WDW Pro for that kind of information, because they are experts on all this kind of stuff. But I was always hopeful. I was always thought there has to be some common sense. Like at some point, the massive amount of billions of dollars that the Walt Disney Company has lost over the last couple of years, eventually that has to wake some people up. Eventually, especially these major institutions, that their only goal is to make money. At some point, you have to understand that they are not doing that. Bob Iger is not the one doing that. He is not the one pulling this off in any way, shape, or form. Something has got to change, or you're going to lose all of your investment. So we'll see what ends up happening, because even Mexican Iron Man did not think Peltz was able to pull this off, but now it's starting to look more and more like he might actually be able to pull this off. So now, though Jay Rusalo remains a long shot, Peltz is neck and neck. If he does manage to get on the board, the response from the Disney CEO Bob Iger, who has fought vigorously to stop Peltz, will be a very interesting thing to see. A much smaller distribution was sufficient to send Michael Eisner packing once upon a time. Exactly. A much smaller disturbance was sufficient to send Michael Eisner packing, which once again, the organization that helped send Michael Eisner packing and ended up putting Bob Iger in his place is the exact same one that's trying to split the baby right now, saying vote for Peltz, but don't vote for the old former CFO, which personally I think is stupid, but hey, that's just the way they're trying to split the baby, so whatever. And the same extremely individual, yep, they said that right there. So ultimate result in Bob Iger, an NCO, is now recommended against Iger's desires. As one might imagine, Disney didn't agree. While we are heartened to see support for Michael Frumman and the ISS's recommendation to withhold on dissident directors Jay Rusolo and the Blacklat's nominees, we strongly believe that ISS reached the wrong conclusion in its recent report when it comes to adding Nelson Peltz to the board. Of course you're going to come out and say that. Of course you are, because if not, you would agree with this changeover. But no. You don't want to lose power. You don't want to lose your grip on your propaganda machine. Now do you? Because that's exactly all that Walt Disney Company has become, nothing more than a propaganda machine for the spirit of the age. We don't care about the rest of what Walt Disney Company has to say. It's literally just like, oh, in contrast to Glass Lewis, ISS fails to acknowledge the breadth of perspective and expertise Ms. Laguizano adds to the board. How much stock does she own? How much Hollywood experience does she have? Oh, that's right, not anywhere near as much as what you thought. The strong recent performance and results overseen by the Disney board demonstrate a focus on long-term shareholder value creation and succession planning and our commitment to good governance practices. Okay, that last line there is a complete and total lie. The strong recent performance and results? What strong performance? What strong results? Every movie you have put out the last couple of years, with the exception of maybe 2, has failed miserably at the box office. Let's go through them. Little Mermaid, Indiana Jones, what do we got? We got the WandaVision series, which is the only good Disney Plus thing. Everything else has failed miserably. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness lost money. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania lost money. You can argue Guardians of the Galaxy probably barely made a profit. There's a good argument for that one. Wakanda Forever, there's a good argument that that one did not make a profit. And obviously, we all saw what happened with the Marvels being one of the biggest, actually the biggest Disney Marvel bomb in all of history. What results would you like people to look at? What successes, Disney board, can you point to over the last few years that have absolutely been a send it home? Your parks are failing with the numbers down lower than they've been in decades. You're failing miserably at the box office. Your Disney Plus streaming service bundle has turned into an absolute flop and disaster that has cost you billions of dollars. You're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on television shows that nobody watches, that doesn't bring in subscribers. And your last big gamut on the Taylor Swift nonsense also failed miserably, as it had some of the worst numbers in the ratings for all of the time out there for all of the rest of the shows going on. Bob Iger and everybody else and all of the rest of the ilk that are currently in charge of the Walt Disney Company, and especially that board, are exactly the reason why this company is currently in the situation it is in, is exactly why it's in the financial situation it's in, it's exactly the reason why it's in the cultural situation it's in, it's the reason why they have destroyed and devastated all of your legacy characters, all of your beloved franchises out there. Because the people that took over the Walt Disney Company had one goal in mind and one goal in mind only. And I guarantee you that was not telling good stories. It was to use the Walt Disney Company, its family brand, to infect your children and all of the rest of your family entertainment out there with its agenda. The acolytes of the cult took over Disney specifically to turn it into a propaganda arm for their messaging. And guess what? Propaganda arms for messaging that the majority of the average individual, the average common nerd, the average consumer out there, the average fan rejects, is nothing more than an unsustainable and unprofitable, miserable, disastrous dumpster fire of a failure. And a lot of people are apparently waking up to that. Now, whether or not Peltz on his own can make this happen, whether or not we'll see Rasulo go on there, well, we're going to find out next Wednesday. And this is going to be very interesting. But the fact that the Wall Street Journal is reporting on this and the fact that somebody leaked it out is telling that a lot of people are very worried and they're trying to sway things one way or the other. At the end of the day, the Walt Disney Company can burn down to the ground for all I care. But I would honestly love to see it restored, because I was a Disney kid and I want the House of Mouse back on top and telling us good stories again. But hey, if not, by all means, double down, Disney stockholders, vote for Iger, vote for more of the same, and watch your investments and all of your money go up in flames as the IPs slowly get sold off to people who might actually take care of them. And honestly, I'm good either way. Burn Disney, burn, or turn around and fix things. We're going to find out next Wednesday.